So as President Trump's impeachment trial starts to wrap up, you guys on social media had some questions about what you've missed, what's been going on, and where does it go from here?
Pursuant to the provisions of Senate Resolution 488, the Senate has provided for up to 4 hours of closing arguments equally divided between the managers on the part of the House of Representatives and the counsel for the president.
Since President Trump's impeachment trial started on January 16th, we've heard hours and hours and hours of both the evidence collected by House managers who are prosecuting this case and say that the president's conduct when it comes to Ukraine and holding this military aid was impeachable. And we've also heard hours and hours of the defense of why the president's attorneys say he held this aid and why it was not an impeachable offense. After hearing both cases by both the president's defense and also those House managers, we heard a lot of questions from senators. They had a total of 16 hours to ask any questions that they felt needed to be answered. The Senate also heard closing remarks from both the House managers and also the president's defense team.
What they're saying is basically, well, we have enough to prove our case. That's what managership says, but not really. So we really need more evidence, not because we need it, because we want it.
I think we can all see what's going on here, and that is, if the House wants to call witnesses, if you want to hear from a single witness, if you want to hear what John Bolton has to say, we are going to make this endless. We, the president's lawyers, are going to make this endless.
So the biggest question that had loomed over this trial for weeks was whether or not the Senate would vote to hear from new witnesses or see any new documents. This was a big deal. And a number of key Republicans who would need to vote for this had remained open to it until the day of the vote. A number of them had kind of differing explanations for this. One, Senator Alexander of Tennessee, he explained that even if the Senate did hear from new witnesses, even if John Bolton or Mick Mulvaney, the White House Chief of Staff, even if they came before the Senate and told everything that they knew about Ukrainian aid, it wouldn't change his mind that he felt that the House managers had proved their case, that the president's conduct was not good, that the president did withhold this aid, at least in part, to coerce Ukraine into investigating a political rival, but these acts were not impeachable. So if he heard from new witnesses, heard new facts, it just simply did not meet the high bar to impeach a president in his eyes. Other Republican senators who voted to oppose hearing from new witnesses explained that they simply did not believe it was their duty. In the Constitution, it says fairly clearly that the House was tasked with, investigating this, with their inquiry. They craft the case and they argue the case before the Senate. Many Republicans felt that it was the duty of the House to get to the bottom of this, that they should have went to court, they should have battled to hearing from these witnesses such as John Bolton, and that it was not the Senate's duty to pick up the task.
If the Senate can just decide there's no executive privilege, guess what? You're destroying executive privilege. A verdict, a final judgment of acquittal would be the best thing for our country and would send a great message that will actually help in our separation of powers.
If we hold that a president can defy all subpoenas, can tie up the Congress endlessly with bad faith claims of privilege, claiming here one thing, claiming in court something else, it will eviscerate our oversight power. If the president is allowed to decide which subpoenas they will deign to consider valid and which they will deign to consider invalid, your oversight power, our oversight power is gone.
We simply don't know what kind of precedent this is going to send and what sort of effect it could have in the future. It could have a number of effects, including in future impeachment trials. What's likely to happen is someone will point to this. Someone will point to this trial and say, in President Trump's impeachment trial, we heard from no witnesses, so there's no need to hear from some now. It could also embolden future administrations, which is something that Democrats have harped on, that allowing the president to get away from this conduct, allowing the White House to block witnesses, to block documents, would allow future administrations to continue to do that. And one of Congress's roles is to be a check on the executive branch, to be a watchdog over the executive branch. And so they've worried about the precedent it could send and the message that it sends to future presidents who just don't want to comply with Congress.